Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Matt and today we are going to talk about feature toggles. In this video, you will learn about React Context API, feature toggles, environmental variables, building custom hooks. But what actually feature toggles are? So feature toggles enable programmers to change the state of the application without changing its code, even on production. Probably you've noticed that some of the websites during the Christmas period put Santa Claus hat into their logos. And it's not like they build this feature every year to deploy it to production just for 2 weeks a year. No, they built a feature toggle for it and they just enable it during some periods of time. For example, like during the Christmas period. So they don't need to modify the code every 2 weeks, they just enable it when they need it. Another good example for using feature toggles is fulfillment of continuous integration, so you can allow your developers to commit unfinished code to production. I recorded another video about this. You can find it somewhere here or in the description. I don't know, I have very bad orientation. I don't really know how to do this stuff on YouTube. I will try to figure it out. And before we get started, I just wanted to tell you that there will be 3 repositories for this video. One, the scaffolder, which you can pull and continue doing this with myself in the same time. Another repository of finished code, where you can simply pull it or fork it and deploy it to Vercel without writing the code actually. And the third repository shows how to do it with AWS, Nginx, Docker, and so on. I had another video about deployment to AWS, so you can also find it somewhere here or there. So that's it. Before we get started, please hit the like button and subscribe so more people can find this video on YouTube. So let's get started now. I bootstrap a simple project using Next.JS and we are going to build upon this scaffolder. It contains 2 charts, as you can see. One contains the real GDP of United States and the second one is unfinished. So the purpose of this video is to disable the second chart on production environment and have it enabled only during development. So developers can continue working on it and see it, but real users will not see it. So I prepared 2 repositories for this video. The one is Next feature toggle scaffolder, so you can fork it and continue with myself. And Next feature toggle example, which contains the complete solution, which you can directly deploy to Vercel and play around with this. Unfortunately, I cannot fork my own repositories, so I created an interim repository called Next.ft-demo, which I will work on, but I will remove this repository after this tutorial, so you will not have access to it. As you can see, currently the repositories are private, but I will make them public once I publish the video. So our objective is to hide the second chart. If you wonder how to build a Next application from scratch, you can learn it from the tutorial on my YouTube channel. Link to the first episode of this tutorial is in the description, and I will try to put it on the right hand side top corner. So let's go to the directories in my code base. As you can see, we have directory with components, which contains these charts. We have a directory called pages, which contain the API, the main application file, which contains the entry file to the application, which is _app.tsx, and index.tsx, which contains the homepage of the application. We have also a directory called public, which contains the assets, and the styles, which contains the styles to the website. That's it, what this application contains in the current moment. So now, how we can implement a feature toggle mechanism here? I think the easiest way to do this will be using a mechanism called React Context API. So what is React Context? Context offers a clean way of passing data through multiple layers of components without passing props manually to each children. Let's look how it looks if we wouldn't use the context. So let's look into this example. We have 2 objects we want to pass to our components, which is user and avatar size. And if we don't use context, we'll need to inject them manually as a properties to every component. And if we use the context API, we will not need to do this. We'll make them available globally through the context hooks. In this tutorial, we are going to continue on a feature toggle example, not user and avatar size. But I just wanted to show you how cumbersome it is without using context API. And imagine that you have multiple levels on components and you need to pass something down to 10 layers of components. It is really cumbersome. Okay, so let's go back to the code and start creating the context in our application. So I will open my console. In the current moment, I need to kill my web server. I will create a directory called context. I will get into this directory. And I'm going to create their file called feature toggle context.ts. As you can see, the directory pop up here. It's called context. Let's open it. And we have a new file called feature toggle context here. Let's open it. And now we can start to define the content of this file. So we need to import React from React. And we are going to export const called feature toggle context. And now, how we are going to use React context, we simply call React dot create context. And we'll define one variable in this, one property called enabled features. And it will contain an empty array of string. I'm using here casting from TypeScript to define what is the output of this function. I think this is the easiest way, because otherwise this array will be called in the type of never. We can actually take a look. As you can see, actually any in the current version of TypeScript, but it's never used. So let's save. So have in mind that this default value is only used when the component is wrapped in a provider, and it shouldn't be used this way. We are going to fix it soon, but in this case it helps TypeScript to detect what is the type of this value, so we don't need to cast it so often. So now we can actually create a provider, so we can take advantage of the context. I will create a new file in the components directory, so I don't open the console, and I will call it feature toggle provider.tsx this time, because we are defining the React component, not JavaScript component. By coincidence, I put it into the chats directory, so I move it to components. Move. And now we need to import React, as always. Now I'm going to import a feature toggle context, which will consume in this component. This one. Now export const feature toggle. We're defining a simple empty component, and this component will return a feature toggle provider context provider, which has a value of enabled features, which contains an empty array. And it will just wrap the children into it. So we need to define children as a prop. Let's define the prop type. So props equals children. Let's call it any because it's easier. And also we are going to accept enabled features as an array of string. And we are going to use it as props. So, and instead of hard coding this, I'm going to do something like this. We are going to inject the predefined list of enabled features here. So we don't hard code it in the provider. We're supposed to actually accept it from our external point, which we'll hook in very soon. But in the current moment, our provider is ready, so we can hook it into our project. Let's open pages_app.tsx. And here we need to import our provider. And we are going to wrap the component, which is passed as a children, into feature toggle provider. So we're going to import feature toggle, and I'm going just to copy this component into the feature toggle. Let's remove this one. Of course, the TypeScript complains that we didn't pass one parameter, which is enabled features. So let's pass it here. And in the current moment, I'm just going to hard code the list of enabled features, and I will call it treasury chart. At the current moment, we are going to change it later on. So technically, our feature toggle mechanism is ready, but we still miss a helper that allows us to consume the context without any obstacles, without calling directly. And we are going to use hooks to actually make it more accessible and in a clean way. So now let's create the hook directory in our project. I'm going to take it out of the components to the main level. Let's create a file called use feature toggle.ts. And now we need to import use context from React. So we need to open import React actually. Yeah. Also use context. And also we need to import our context from feature toggle. Let's do it. So we have access to this. And now we need to create a helper function with this hook function actually. Export const use feature toggle, which doesn't accept any property. We are going to take enabled features out of the use context feature toggle context. So thanks to the use context method, we will have access to the list of features. As you can see, the type is detected properly, so we know the enabled features is an array of string. Now we need to define a method called isEnabled. Const isEnabled, and this function will help us to verify if the feature is enabled. So let's call it feature name, and this is a string, and we're going to return the output of enabled feature, and we just check if this array includes given feature. If it doesn't, this function will return false. If it is, it will return true. It's Boolean, as you can see. And now we need to return. An array of available methods. Probably you noticed that if hook returns something, it's usually not an object but an array. I'm going to be consistent with useStateHook, so I'm going to expose only one method because I don't want to expose the whole array to the user. So it's enabled. Yeah, and yeah, let's just save it. As you can see, it just returns one method. So now our hook is ready, so we can proceed and connect into our application. So now let's open the pages index, which contains our main page. And as you can see in line 20, we have a treasury chart, which we want to enable only if the feature is enabled. So how can we do this? I think the very first thing is we need to import our hook. Let's call it use feature toggle. And now in the home function, we need to take advantage of this. So we define const, we open an array, is enabled, use feature toggle. And voila, we actually have it. As you can see, is enabled is actually the function we defined in our hook. So it works. So now we can actually verify in the line 22 where our treasury chart is enabled. The name of the feature was treasury chart, right? And if it is enabled, we are going to display the treasury chart like this. The treasury chart name comes actually from the underscore app.tsx. As you can see, it is exactly the same name. So I just wanted to show you from where does this name come from. Let's try our application. I need to restart the server. As you can see, the chart is still available on our website. Now, if we go back to code, and let's just change or remove this entry from this array. Let's save it. Let's open the website. And you see that our chart is actually gone. So we need to enable this feature if we want to have it visible. So the feature toggle actually works. Unfortunately, the current solution doesn't allow us to change the status of the feature without modifying the code base. And this is not ideal, and actually it's sort of counterproductive. So I think the easiest way to do this, like toggleable, without changing the code base, it would be using the environmental variables. So what are the environmental variables? An environment variable, it is a variable whose value is set outside of the program, usually by the functionality built into the operating system or the web server. So in our case, it is Node, sometimes it's Docker, sometimes it's just your operating system such as macOS, Windows, or Linux. So, but how to use it in the Next.js? The easiest way would be to go back to the terminal. We'll kill our server, and I will go to the main directory, and I will create it actually here. So now let's go back to code. As you can see, I have a new file here called .env, and I'm going to define here a new variable called feature treasury chart equals false. Let's save it. And now I'm going back to console to restart my development server. As you can see, Next.js detected that there is a .env file in our project. So it's loading the variables into the application, so we can take advantage out of it. Let's go back to code. So now let's think how we can actually incorporate this variable into our application. So the easiest way would be to create a new API, which will return the list of enabled features. So let's do it right now. So we create a new file in the API directly in the pages directory. Let's call it features.ts. And now we need to define the function here and export it. Export default. It will require request and response. And we are going to return res JSON, status 200, and the output will be JSON, and it will be an array, which contains the list of features. So now we need to check the process.env and feature treasury chart. If it equals true, then we'll add treasury chart to the list. Otherwise, we'll add an empty value. So let's try this endpoint. Let's see what it returns. And we can see here the treasury chart added to the list. So let's go back to code. And now we need to hook it into our frontend, and we can easily do it by create the directory called services. In the meanwhile, I will need to install Axios. So let's kill my server, yarn add Axios. So let's actually start to define this service. Let's create a new file here in the services directory called feature toggle. We can import actually Axios here from Axios. And we are going to export const called fetch features. This will be, of course, asynchronous function. And we are going to open try catch statement. Will return console error, or actually maybe console log if something goes wrong. Something went wrong. And it will return the empty array of string if the query fails. So otherwise, we'll use Axios to actually call our API, which is /API/features. And we already know that we return an array of string. So we can actually put it here. And simply we'll return the data, right? So now we can see that this service returns a promise of string array. So that's actually what we wanted to achieve here. So now we need to open the _app file, and we need to define the state. So let's call it enabled features, set features, use state array of string, of course, and it will contain empty array. We need to import React. Let's add the enabled features here. And now we will need to create a helper called const process features. Let's make it asynchronous. And it will already return the array, so we don't need to try catch here, so let's call it const features equals await fetch features. Yeah, as you can see, ID automatically imports it. Let's save and set features. And now we need to use effect hook to actually trigger this this callback. We don't need the dependencies. I process. I wonder what was wrong. Process features, and let's invoke it. Let's save the app, and we'll open our browser. We can actually go back to the application. It's killed. Oh, I forgot I killed the server. So let's restart it. Let's go back to the website. So in the meanwhile, I'm going to explain you that here we don't add any dependencies, and we really want to do this because in this case, use effect will be triggered only once. So none of the parameters change during the execution of this function. So we do it only once. Probably we'll need to ESLint disable it. This line. React hooks exhaustive tips. Let's check if it works. Okay, it's compiled. Let's go back, and you can see that we have this chart still available. Let's go back to the code, and we see that it's actually enabled in our .env file. So let's try to disable it. Yeah, I think we need to restart the server to actually pick up the new environment variable. Let's try it. And now you can see that the chart is gone. So our feature toggle works. So now we can actually push our code to GitHub, and we'll deploy this application to Vercel to take a look if it's working after the deployment. So I'm going to kill the server. I will check what files has changed. Okay, I will add all. Add some code. Just let's call it this way. Okay, I need to set upstream. Okay, now it's getting committed. Let's go to the browser. We need to open Vercel. So now we open Vercel and we click on new project. And now I don't see my repository on the list, so I need to press adjust GitHub app permissions. Now I'm logging in. And I need to allow it to consume one more repository, which is actually called like this one, and we hit save. Now our project is available. Let's click import. I don't want to really change the name of the project. Let's keep it as it is, and we just want to add one variable called treasury chart. Let's set it to true. Sorry, it's I called it improperly. It's called feature treasury chart. Let's set it to true. Let's add it. We hit deploy. And our application is deployed. As you can see on the screenshot, the treasury chart is missing. I think we can hit go to dashboard. And I think we can actually open the website. And as you can see, the treasury chart is visible. Now let's try to disable it. Why is it missing on the screenshot? Because we use asynchronous call to actually fetch the API. So it's not like we do like the server-side rendering for it. I just hooked it into React. Now, when we want to hide this chart actually on actual application, deployed application, as you can see here, this application is actually deployed. We can simply change this variable which we set. So in this case, if we want to disable the treasury chart, we need to go to the settings and change the environment variable, which we have added here. Let's try to edit it, and we'll use false value instead of this one. We hit save, and I think right now, let's check. Let's reload the website. And the treasury chart is here. So it means that we need to redeploy our application. Let's try to do this. Where is the deployment button? It's the section deployments. Let's hit on this one. And we hit on these 3 dots and redeploy. Redeploy. In the meanwhile, you can hit the like button and subscribe to my channel because it means the world to me. And a lot of people will, so some people might really want to watch this video, and because of this, they will be able to find it on YouTube search engine. So I would really appreciate it. Okay, now our application is deployed. Let's go to the browser and to the website. Let's refresh. And you can see that our application doesn't load the second chart. It means that actually feature toggle works. So I wanted to show you this idea. I hope you find it helpful. I know that this solution isn't perfect, but when you prepare the tutorial, you need to cut some corners. You cannot actually include everything and do everything right. So I still hope it was useful for you, and maybe you have some ideas how to enhance it. So if you could drop the comment in the video how you can make it even better, I would really appreciate it, and maybe I will actually learn something from you. And that's it for today. Thank you for your time and watching this video. If you have any feedback regarding feature toggles or how we can improve the application we created, please drop the comment below. Stay tuned for the next episodes. Hit the like button and subscribe because it will mean the world to me. Stay tuned.